Hi, welcome. Now I am going to show you how to remove or delete pivot table cache or underlying data inside the pivot table. Okay. So what I have here is about 277 records of product, customer, category and country and their respective sales. This is our source data. Okay, I selected the source data. I am going to build a pivot table, insert pivot table. Okay, once I selected the pivot table, it shows select a table or range. The table or range is the full pivot table. Okay, full source data. Okay, then choose where you want the pivot table report to be placed. I want the pivot table report to be placed in the new worksheet. Okay, fine. Okay, so now this has two sections. One is the pivot table report where the pivot table is going to be shown. Okay, this part, and other one is the pivot table field list pan. Okay, from this pan whatever you select, it is going to reflect in the pivot table report. Okay, I select product and the sales of January and the category in column. Okay, so what I am going to do, the row labels to products and the column labels is category. Okay, this is my pivot table. I already created now. Okay, so now the sales, January sales. Okay, January sales. Now the pivot table, you can see I also put the customer as the report filter. You can see it in the report filter. All the customers are coming. Okay, now what I am going to do, I am going to change the source data. Okay, probably the solid SOLID. Okay, the solid it's where here this solid. Okay, so I am going to use and change it to bolid. Okay, so I just change solid to bolid. Okay, which is solid is in only one record here. Okay, already I checked the solid. There is no more record of solid, only one bolid. Solid is there, so I changed to bolid. Now once I change the source data, if you go to the pivot table, see whether it is changed. Bolid is there? No bolid, but solid is still there. Okay, that means what? The pivot table is already created with the source data. While creating the pivot table, it is also taking the snapshot of the data at that time, right? A copy of the data is attached to the pivot table. So whenever you do the calculations, the copy only is used, the underlying data or the cache only used to create the pivot table, but it is not whenever you update the pivot table data, it is not reflected on the pivot table. Okay, it is no more connected to the source data. It is connected, but no more using the source data, but it is only using the cache data. Okay, it is just the connection which it has with the source data is just a connection as and when you want to refresh the data. It's nothing else. Okay, it is not interacting with the source data again and again. Only when you press the refresh, it will interact with the source data. Okay, what I will do, I will show you refresh. Okay, so when you refresh, you can see it here, the solid is no more there. Okay, it moved to the next item, whereas the Okay, the bolid has come now. Okay, the new item. Okay, this way it is now it is connected to the source data. When you refresh it, fix the data and put it again into the underlying data. Okay, the underlying data is modified now, that's why it shows the correct updation. Okay, so now the question here is that is it possible to remove this underlying data? Okay, yes, it is possible, but why do we want to do the removal of the cache or the underlying data? Why do we want to do this? Because if you have multiple pivot tables for multiple source data, the workbook becomes bulkier. Okay, it is just a copy of the source data. Okay, so but you may not use all the pivot tables at one time. Okay, but you are keeping all the data in the cache. Okay, so the workbook is bigger, as well as the cache is bigger and the cache memory is bigger, so the other calculations are slower. Okay, so you want to keep the workbook size smaller as well as the other operations faster. Okay, we want to remove the cache. Okay, if you want to remove the cache, what you need to do is that right click, go to pivot table options, you can see the data here, and save source data with the file. Okay, this is the pivot table data. Okay, so you just uncheck this and press OK. Okay, then save it. You go out, file, open the pivot table workbook again. Now you can see when you press something on the pivot table, it says the pivot table report was saved without the underlying data. Okay, the underlying data is no more there. Use the refresh data command to update the report. Okay, so that means you cannot do anything now other than the last display of the pivot table image. Okay, the data. So what you need to do is you need to refresh now. Okay, now you can do whatever you want on the pivot table. Okay, this way when you want to use the pivot table, that time you can bring the underlying data from the source data, just update it, and whenever you close the pivot table, then there is nothing will be saved with the pivot table. Okay, and those which are not refreshed, there is no cache at all, you see. So you are keeping the cache memory lesser and the file size also lesser, so the performance is higher. Okay, now I just close it. I just again open it. You see the again it shows the same thing. Okay, so whenever you use you want to use it, you refresh it. Okay, now the question comes. Before that I will refresh. Now the question comes that when I open the worksheet, is it possible to refresh automatically? Yes. Okay, so you have about 5 or 6 or 10 of pivot tables, but you want to see only one pivot table every time when you open the workbook. The others, as and when you want it, you refresh it. Okay, those which you want to see it when you open the workbook, to refresh automatically, you can do it by right click on the pivot table options, data, then refresh data when opening the file. Okay, so you just put refresh data when you opening the file. Now close it, save, close it. Now again I am going to open it. Okay, this time when you do the operation, it is possible because it refreshed already while opening it. Okay, so this is the way you can remove the cache or in underlying data from the workbook. Okay, I hope this video is helpful to you, and if you like my videos, just press subscribe button on the screen now, and leave your comments and suggestions, and God bless you.